Hello everybody, welcome to the Old School Game Snob channel. Today we are discussing some of the up-and-coming features to Diablo 2 Resurrected, some of its differences between its previous incarnation, Diablo 2 the classic version, and some of the new features coming in Diablo 2 Resurrected just under a week before launch. I am super excited. Let's get into this list. Okay, and this is a big one to kick things off. Expanded and shared loot stashes. So players will now have access to an expanded stash. This has been a much requested feature over the years, and thankfully this is coming to Diablo 2 Resurrected. Players will now get a 10 by 10 grid in their personal stash for a total of 100 item slots in their main stash. Players will also have access to 2 shared stash tabs. Personally, I wouldn't mind more than this. Maybe this will happen as the game develops, but for now, players will also have access to 2 additional shared stash tabs which they can store items in, which can be accessed by other characters on their account. I remember playing Diablo 20 years ago, and one of the biggest hassles back in Diablo 2 Classic was the muling of items. I remember when you found something amazing, you couldn't just throw it away. You know, it was precious and you could trade it, and you just couldn't throw something extremely valuable away even if your character couldn't use it, and so you were essentially forced to mule it. And this was actually kind of a stressful process because there was always a chance that your hosted Battlenet game would disappear before you could log back in with your mule to pick up your treasure. That actually happened to me a number of times. I'm sure it happened to many of you as well. Anyway, now with shared stashes, it's going to be a lot easier for players to gear up their alternative characters. And with a game like Diablo 2, which is so focused on loot, I think this is a much needed improvement. I hope it is even more expanded in terms of additional shared stash tabs. Next up, and I'm sure this almost goes without saying, but the graphics engine has been entirely overhauled. The developers have actually stated that Diablo 2 Resurrected will essentially run over top of the original game engine with its updated graphics, updated ambient sounds, updated visual effects, and a resolution scaled up to modern gaming systems. In fact, at any point whilst you're playing Diablo 2, you'll be able to hit a toggle and preview what the game used to look like in its original version. I had a chance to play some of the beta, and I can say that the new version is all that I might have hoped for. It feels like you're playing Diablo 2, but it also feels like a modern game. Now, of course, to go along with the overhauled game graphics engine, we also have entirely remade cutscenes. All of the classic cutscenes have been remade to bring Diablo 2 Resurrected up to a modern visual standard. Voice acting has also been re-recorded, and I can say that having experienced a few of the cutscenes myself so far, it is all very well done. With the game trailer just recently having dropped, it was good to see a reworked version of the somewhat goofy-looking Diablo from the end of Act 2 cutscene into a properly horrific version of the Pit Fiend. You know, I remember the first time I ever played Diablo, I listened to every line of dialogue and fully soaked in the story. I was entranced by the lore, the legend, and the battle between the heavens and hell. That was 20 years ago, and you know, I haven't paid a single moment of attention to the storyline since that first playthrough, but I think that when D2R comes out, I am going to sit back, relax, and soak it all in, re-listen to every line of NPC dialogue, and reconnect with that epic storyline and the world of Diablo that has been so compelling for so many people over these last 20 years. There have been many improvements to the Battlenet Multiplayer online experience. I'm super happy to be able to report that in addition to these improvements, such as the ability to connect to worldwide servers, not having your character limited to a particular realm, you will also no longer have to log in every 90 days to refresh your characters. Instead, now all of the characters that you ever make will be permanent, and thank goodness for this. In fact, I have lost so many characters over the years. Sadly, it would have been really cool, I think, to be able to play some of these characters that I started some 20 years ago. But, I mean, there's really no way a person can reasonably log in every 60 days for 20 years without at least forgetting just once. At least for me, this is true. Do you have any old Battlenet characters that survived through the ages? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. Now here's something that I don't care about at all, but probably some of you will. Diablo 2 will now support gaming consoles and will also support cross-platform progression. So that means you can play on your proper gaming device, that is your PC, and you can also play the same characters on your console. Not sure who would ever want to do that. Old school PC gaming snob here, but hey, there it is. A toggle option to always show items on the ground has been added. Apparently many players wanted this. Not me. I find it clutters up my screen too much, and pressing the Alt button isn't really that hard. I actually always saw it as a part of the gameplay, pressing Alt to reveal your treasures on the ground. But for those of you who wanted that feature, it is now going to be available as a toggleable option. You may toggle this feature on or off. This next feature is a little bit controversial, but I think generally the players seem to want it. An automatic gold pickup feature is now going to be a toggleable on or off option. It's probably something that I'm going to leave off because I'm kind of old school in that way. I'm not sure if I actually even really approve of this feature. I kind of feel like if you want the gold, you should go over there and you should pick up the gold. You should have to click it. That's a part of the gameplay. But that's my opinion, and I'm kind of old school, hence the channel name. But for those of you who want the auto gold pickup, that feature will now exist. I think it will be interesting to see if this changes the gold find meta. I can imagine gold find builds being that much more popular for gambling and potentially finding your rare items that way. If gold finding becomes easier to do, then it might actually become a viable way of finding your rare items, maybe. I don't know. It will be interesting to see if this tiny little tweak changes the balance of gameplay much. We'll see. Here is some good news for those of you who like single-player Diablo 2. You will be able to use your old single-player save games. That means your characters that exist right now will continue to exist into the world of Diablo 2 Resurrected. I think that's great. It's not really clear how Blizzard plans to deal with save files that have been tampered with trainers or cheat engines like Hero Editor. If you have any information on this, let me know in the comments. Some additional quality of life details have been added to your character statistics page. These include such things as magic find total percentage, hit recovery percentage total, a faster cast rate, and more. I kind of like this feature update. A part of me will miss the pen and paper arithmetic of adding up all my gear stats and that sort of thing whilst planning out a build. This actually gave you a real feel of hands-on character planning, but overall it was also kind of a hassle, so I don't think I mind this feature at all. Some additional improvements to the mercenary recruitment screen have also been added. This will help new players to understand a little bit more clearly, for example, like what does the Act 2 Merc Prayer Aura actually do? It will also be possible to link items that you have found in your chat window so that other players can click the link to view that item. This is very much reminiscent of World of Warcraft's system for that. I think World of Warcraft almost even pioneered that item link system. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's certainly where I first started seeing it. Equipped items can now be compared to other items, though recommendations will not be made. This will be a feature only for players to evaluate both items and decide for themselves which they think is best. This is a good way to handle this feature, in my opinion. I think modern games have a bad tendency to remove any opportunity for a player to have to use their brain. Old school gamers like myself can appreciate the opportunity to be presented with a decision that isn't already made for you. It will now be possible to send your items to your stash whilst your stash is open with a control-click combo. Instead of having to drag and drop your items one by one, this is very much similar to how the potion belt currently works. I think this is a great improvement and certainly going to be a nice quality of life feature. A little bit more miscellaneous here, but an option has been added to display a message when you attack and miss a monster. This will be an optional display message. Merchants who offer gambling on items will now automatically refresh their wares, and items do not disappear if you buy multiple copies of the same type of item. So with this improvement to gambling and the improvement to gold find, I sort of feel like gambling is going to become more popular in Diablo 2 Resurrected. Here's a big one. This one's cool. I like this one. Killing the Cow King will no longer prevent you from reopening the secret cow level in that level of difficulty. So you can kill the Cow King and loot him without worrying about not being able to get back to the Moo Moo farm. And this feature, in my opinion, comes as a great addition. The Cow King himself has some good drop potential on a lot of good endgame items, and killing him was never a viable option before. This feature makes the cow level even more fun and rewarding now that there is a good chance for the end boss of it to drop something good. This also helps solve a problem where some idiot in your party would kill the Cow King on a level that you opened and thus prevent you from ever opening the Cow King level again. So all in all, I would say a very good improvement. On the topic of Battlenet Multiplayer, the limit to the number of games which you can create on Battlenet within a given time frame has been removed, so you can now farm Pindle Skin at literally the speed of light and hopefully find that juicy Griffin's Eye. This next one is also a big one, and very much welcomed, at least by me, as I was never really a ladder enthusiast. But now, all items which used to be exclusive to ladder-only mode will now be available to single player as well as non-ladder multiplayer. That includes rune words like Spirit and like Insight. And this, in my opinion, is as well as it should be. My challenge has always been to be, how long can I survive in hardcore difficulty? And I never liked having to try to time my play sessions to the latter seasons. But there are items like Spirit and Insight which you really can't manage to play without. So you're forced to play in ladder to get these items. And if you started later in a latter season, well, your character was just kind of shit out of luck, more or less, in regards to getting some of the powerful later on ladder-only rune words. So I am a really big fan of this idea. I'm a big fan of the fresh ladder race reset, and I'm sure I'll be doing that as well in the future, but it's really nice that you don't have to do it now in order to play the full and complete game. Oh, and this change also applies to Heraldric cube recipes that only used to be available in ladder, will now also be available in single-player and non-ladder multiplayer. Okay, on to a few controversial fixes, and I'm doing air quotes on fixes right now. The weapon switch glitch, which allowed players to free themselves from the effects of hit recovery and stun lock, has now been fixed. So PvPers in Diablo have cried out warning that this will ruin PvP in Diablo, as this mechanic was necessary to avoid endless stun lock. I'm not so sure myself. I've actually never PvP'd in Diablo, though I plan to with the release of D2R. I'm actually a really big fan of PvP, so I can't really comment on what the implications of this fix is or may be beyond what I've heard. Also, the famous Eth bug has also been fixed. This bug allowed some etheric armor pieces to have their stats or their defense hugely increased when adding sockets to the item with a Heraldric cube recipe. Fair enough, I say. This doesn't bother me either way. What do you think of this fix, and what do you think of the weapon switch glitch fix? Let me know in the comments. Also fixed was the next hit always misses bug. I'm not really sure what this was, to be honest. I always play a spellcaster class, but hey, for those of you who know, that has now been fixed. So that concludes our list of features that are going to be in Diablo 2 Resurrected upon launch. Now, the following is a quick list of some potential changes that may be coming to Diablo Resurrected sometime after its launch. So this is all just speculatory. Number one, and I think this has been much requested by the community. I think, in fact, 70 to 80% of the Diablo community have voted in favor of the feature to stack runes. I myself am also in favor of this feature. Inventory is too limited already, and runes take up a lot of space. I think this would be a nice feature to have. Number two, some sort of automatic inventory sorting feature has also been proposed, although I'm not really sure any more details on this. In addition to that, some sort of advanced spell bar for the keyboard has also been proposed. I'm not really sure the details on that either. An inventory dedicated to charms has also been proposed. I am not sure exactly what that would look like, but I assume it would be an inventory that just holds charms and is probably limited to a certain number of slots. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. A part of the original game, in my opinion, was balancing how many charms you wanted to load up in your inventory against how many items you wanted to just be able to freely pick up. You know, looting convenience versus character power. And, that system had its own charms to it, no pun intended, and I sort of liked the natural limitations of that system. However, I'm not opposed to a charm-only inventory either. Anyway, this is just a proposed feature. I'm not really too sure the details of it beyond that. A durations display for active bonuses has also been proposed. This would affect things I am guessing, like how long your frozen armor spell has left. Personally, refreshing frozen armor is sort of an OCD compulsion for me at this point, so this feature isn't really going to make much of a difference for me either way. But number 6, an in-game encyclopedia for the Heraldric Cube recipes is also being talked about. And I actually kind of like this idea. As much as I like digging around websites for these recipes, and as good of a job as some of these classic old websites have done to provide that information to the Diablo 2 community, I've always felt it was pretty cumbersome in trying to find recipes for the Heraldric Cube in particular, and I certainly wouldn't mind a quick in-game reference for this. It's also been proposed that they may add additional ways to reset your character's skills and attributes, but I don't have any more details beyond that. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. That's all I know about the upcoming changes. I'm just chomping at the bit here for September the 23rd. Just a few more days. All right. Hey, if you like this video and you want to get more Diablo 2 content, I am creating like a madman here, so subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the link in the description below. I'm starting up a Discord community for new and returning Diablo players, so if you want to find a party and meet some people, the channel's just been started, so come and be one of the first to join us, and we'll happily trek into Diablo 2 Resurrected together and have some fun. All right.